Welcome to another edition of Thunderdome!
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of my podcast. It is week 7, so we're going to be doing the week 7 preview here. For those of you who have asked, there's been about 5 of you. No, Liv and I have not gotten divorced yet. Tomorrow will be officially 1 week, so let's not jinx it if we could. But as far as I know, there's a pool going on when we're actually going to get divorced. The earliest was actually within the first week, and one of you actually thinks we're going to make it to about 6 months, so that's kind of cool. But no, for those of you who bet within the week, as long as I don't do something stupid and Liv doesn't come back, today with another dude, we will have officially made it a week. But no, things are still these are still going strong so far. So just wanted to address that before we get going here. So. Yeah, but Vegas was absolutely amazing. And I know I said it in my email yesterday, but thank you guys so much for being out there with us and for being a part of it. We went back and forth when we were planning the wedding, what we wanted to do. We almost got married here in Colorado, but it was tough. It was tough. The venue we wanted, it was going to be Arrowhead Golf Course down in Littleton. They needed an 80-person minimum, which for Liv and I was really tough because we were going to start kind of inviting people that we didn't really want to be there necessarily, but we just kind of needed to fill the seats. And we started planning for all that, and then after we started doing it, we're like, God, this seems kind of stupid that we're just inviting people on the sake of filling a quota. That's not what we wanted to do. So we eventually went the Vegas route, and we kept it to, I think there was like 22 or 23 people total there, and that's just way more kind of our vibe, and we just wanted our immediate family, closest friends to be there for that, and like I said, we sincerely appreciate you guys making that work to be there for us. It was a lot of fun. I still am reeling from that a little bit. I'm trying to catch up on some sleep. I didn't sleep well once while we were out there, and every night rather we've been back, I've slept for like 9 hours or so. So I'm still trying to catch up on some sleep. I'm dealing with a little bit of a kind of a head cold here. I've got a sore throat, got a runny nose. I'm trying to work through, but forgive me if the pod sounds shittier than it normally does, but you're gonna have to kind of deal with me sounding like Batman. The longer this goes. So, without wasting any more of your guys' time, let's go ahead and just get rolling right into this. So, week 7. It's been a weird start of the season for fantasy football, and I talked a little bit about that last podcast too. But I read a stat here just the other day that said scoring in fantasy football is actually down 22%. Than it was last year, and it's just a direct relation to there's just been a lot of shitty football so far this season. A lot of low scoring football, especially scoring's down in the NFL than it has been in the past couple years, and it's obviously taken its toll on fantasy. So if you look back at our matchups here over the last 7 weeks, you can see the scoring is way down. Except for, guys like Casey, who scores 150 fucking points every week, and like Colin, who's putting up like 130 plus every week. But for the big majority of us, it's been low, really low scoring. So if you're wondering why that is, it's not the way the league set up. I set it up the same as last year. All the points and all that stuff's still the same. It's just real life NFL football scoring's way down, and it's causing that fantasy stuff to go down. So just wanted to address that. If anybody was wondering, I don't know if anybody really cared, but that's just kind of what's going on. All right, let's go ahead and jump right into it here. We'll go ahead and start with me versus Ben. So I've got Joe Burrow going against Atlanta. Joe Burrow was just absolutely incredible last week against the Saints. He put up 43.5 points, 300 passing yards, and 4 total touchdowns. I don't think there's any reason why he can't do that against Atlanta. Against the pass especially, Atlanta's very, very bad. Looking here against quarterbacks, they're the 24th ranked team in the NFL. So if Joe Burrow was even like a half as good as he was last week, he's in a good spot there. Same goes with Alvin Kamara, who plays tonight on Thursday Night Football. I have high hopes that this football game is actually decent. Seems like every primetime game that's been on the NFL this year has been just shitty, terrible, and like 3/4 of those games have been the Broncos. But tonight's Thursday night game is the Saints and the Cardinals. Like I said, I've got Kamara going. He's been great here since he's come back from injury. He's just a complete volume guy. He's a great PPR guy. Last week, he had 6 catches for 25 yards. The week before that, he had 6 catches for 91 yards. 19 carries for 99 yards and 23 carries for 103 yards. So he almost put up 200 scrimmage yards 2 weeks ago, and he put up a little over 100 last week. So I think it's a great opportunity to do so against the Cardinals, who have a good pass defense, but their rush defense is a little bit can be attacked a little bit. I know that technically it says they have the 3rd rank, but with the usage that Kamara's getting this year, I really like him, just especially in the PPR. Who I'm not as excited about is Jeff Wilson Jr. He put up 0.5 points for me last week. He had 25 yards and a fumble. He doesn't get a lot easier matchup on Sunday against the Chiefs. The Chiefs, they do have a decent rush defense. It's better than what the stats show on paper. It says they have the 28th best rush defense, but they have not been getting cooked on the ground at all here lately, and the Chiefs are kind of just getting better as the season goes. They're going to be upset after losing to Buffalo last week. I don't love Jeff Wilson, but he's not splitting time with anybody, so I think it's just a volume sake. I think he's a good RB1, RB2. Deebo Samuel is another one. I like him better than I like Jeff Wilson, just because the Chiefs can get thrown on, and they need to get Deebo going here. He's had really one big week where he got 28.7 points. That was against the Rams. He had 115 yards in the air and a touchdown. He's only got 2 touchdowns through the first 6 games. So I really think they need to get him going, and I think this is a good opportunity to do so against the Chiefs backfield, Chiefs secondary, rather, that just got exploited by Buffalo, has been getting beat in the air all year. As long as they throw the ball, and which I'm thinking they're going to have to in this game, should be good for Deebo Samuel. Gallup, was in the trade involving Matt here a few weeks ago. Matt actually sent me a trade of Rondale Moore for Gallup again, which I declined out of just pride and principle. And I don't think he's in a bad spot. I think he's getting Dak back this week. I at least want to see how his relationship with Dak is, because it was great last year. He hasn't gotten to play with Dak yet this season, with Gallup starting the season hurt, and obviously Dak being hurt until now. But I'm reading a lot of good stuff about Gallup and Dak, and that offense getting a lot more pass heavy and putting up a lot more points here going forward. So I do like Gallup this week against Detroit, who's the worst pass defense in the league. They're giving up the most points. It should be a good spot. I'm not falling for that trap yet, Matt. Freiermuth should be coming back against Miami. He was out with a concussion. Looks like he's getting ready to go. He was really good before he got hurt. Miami's pass defense is very lackluster. I don't really need to say more. They're the 19th ranked pass defense. I like Freiermuth there. I do like Zeke. I can't believe I'm saying it, but I do like Zeke. He kind of broke out a little bit last week for like 15 fantasy points. I did not play him, of course. Luckily, it didn't matter. But he gets to Detroit this week. They're the 29th best defense against the rush. I do think they try to throw the ball a little bit more than they do run in this game, but I do like Dallas in this one, and I think it's going to be a shootout. So I think I like Elliott, especially in the red zone and around the goal line. I do like Elliott in this one. Um, and then I'll just touch on the Denver defense. They've been great. They've been the only reason the Broncos haven't lost every single game. It's not for their offense. It's not for their running game, not for their pass catchers. It's all because of their defense. They have an elite defense. They get the Jets this week. Zach Wilson is like the king of turnovers. I really think the Jets beat us in Denver on Sunday, but I think it's just like a classic Broncos game. It's shitty, low scoring. And I think the Broncos get to him quite a bit and get a pick or a fumble and a bunch of sacks. So not bad for the Broncos. Okay, moving on to Ben. Ben's got Kyler Murray going tonight against the Saints. Murray has been better as of late. God, last week he finally showed what he could do on the ground. He ran 10 times for 100 yards last week. I think we're going to see a lot of that tonight. That Saints rush defense is pretty tough. Their air defense is not. But I do think that we're going to see Kyler Murray scramble a little bit, and he's getting DeAndre Hopkins back tonight. And I know he did lose Marquise Brown. I didn't really want to talk about that for my sake because I've still been weeping about that, and my best wide receiver is out. But he gets DeAndre Hopkins back. He's got Rondale Moore. He's got AJ Green. He has a lot of options to throw to still. I think it's going to be a good matchup for Kyler Murray. McCaffrey is kind of in a tricky situation because there's so many transfer or trade rumors floating around about him. He's been rumored to go to the Bills. He's been rumored to come here to Denver, to San Francisco. I don't really know. I know he's probably not going to be in Carolina for that much longer, but he's going to be playing just to kind of show. It's kind of like the come and get me, right now kind of thing. So he's obviously going to be utilized because he's the only good player in Carolina, but he gets a really, really tough rush defense in Tampa Bay. They're ranked 10th. But just for the sake of PPR, he's just matchup proof. I don't think he's going to explode for points, but because he catches a lot of passes, just his volume alone, he should be in for a decent score. Ramondre Stevenson has been really good. He's been New England's best running back by a mile. I don't love the primetime game against the Bears for them though, especially against the rush. The Bears defense has been good. It's kind of been similar to the Broncos. It's been the only reason they've been kind of in games so far this season. I don't think New England loses to Chicago at home on Monday night, but they could. I think that game sucks like every other primetime game. That's not one of the games I love Stevenson in, but again, maybe just volume's sake, he's their best running back. You never know. If they can get something down near the red zone goal line, Stevenson will punch one in. Brandon Cooks against Vegas. That's not a bad spot for him. Brandon Cooks is very just kind of like middle of the road. He's the best pass catcher on Houston. Vegas is very, very beatable in the air. So they'll have to. That game should have a lot of points in it. I think they're gonna have to throw the ball. I think Houston's gonna have to throw the ball. So, and the Raiders have the 26th best defense against the pass. So you never know. It's kind of a boomer bust for Cooks so far this year, but he could be in for decent points. Same goes for Tyler Lockett too. Kind of just boomer bust. The Chargers, very, very beatable in the air. They're 25th against wide receivers. Just kind of depends. I feel like it's never both a Lockett and a DK Metcalf game. It's kind of one or the other. Last week, it very much was not a Lockett game. Could be against this one, but I don't know. It's if they throw to Lockett, he's good. That defense is terrible. I see that game having a lot of points in it too. So Lockett could be good there. And Njoku, same thing. He's very, very good. He's one of the better tight ends in the league this year, to at least through the first 7 weeks. They've got Baltimore on the road, and Baltimore against the pass. Let me find it here. They're 21st, so that secondary is really, really bad. I don't really know how they are against opposing tight ends, but I think that's a game that they're going to have to probably throw the ball a little bit. I think Cleveland's going to get down in that game. So and Njoku should be decent. Kelsey against San Francisco, maybe a little bit tougher. Kelsey ain't gonna score, 4 touchdowns this week against San Fran in San Fran. That's a tough place to play. In San Francisco, they're about middle of the pack against the pass. Kelsey's Kelsey. He's never going to have a bad game. I would maybe temper expectations a little bit on this one. I think he's probably somewhere around 60 something yards and maybe a score, but I could see this being lower scoring than a lot of people think. And then finally, he's got the Dallas defense against Detroit. It's a tougher one because Detroit's so high scoring, but yeah, but that Dallas defense is very good. They're playing at home. That's a tough place to play in Dallas. That game is probably going to be a shootout, but I'd much rather have the Dallas defense than like the Detroit defense against Dallas. I would never want the Detroit defense. So Dallas defense has proven to be good. I think this one is maybe a little bit sketchier just because there should be a ton of points in this game since Detroit is the highest scoring offense in the league still. They are coming off a bye as well, so yeah, it's very close. We're projected almost dead even points. It's 128.4, 128.2 in favor of me. My matchups aren't as bad as I thought they were, and I'd have to maybe give the lean to myself just a little bit with Joe Burrow against Atlanta, and Gallup against Detroit, maybe Zeke against Detroit. Just that matchup, just those Dallas guys against Detroit, I think maybe puts it over the edge just a little bit for me. But man, I don't know. My team has not been good really this whole time, so I wouldn't be shocked if I lose. Ben historically has been kind of a bugaboo team for me, so yeah, I guess we'll see. But that one should be very close the entire time. All right, moving on to it's the sister battle. It's Em and Abby. We'll go ahead and start with Abby, who needs to change her name because I finally figured the fucking thing out. Crazy Sport Lady, Miss CSL, and then MMS is Matt Morelli sucks. Abby, if you want to change it to one of those things that I suggested, and if you want to kind of switch roles and take a crack at either of those, I'm happy to play that game. If you don't want to, I totally understand, and you can change it to something else that'll stump me for the next fucking 6 weeks. Mahomes against San Fran, kind of going back to that one. Mahomes is great, and he's just kind of matchup proof no matter what. But I don't think he explodes for points in this one against like a decent secondary in San Francisco, especially on the road. I think he's a little bit more human this week, kind of like he was against Buffalo. I think he's a little bit worse than he was against Buffalo in this one, but yeah, I guess we'll see. But it's fucking Patrick Mahomes. Dameon Pierce, that's definitely one of the pickups of the one of kind of like the sleeper picks of the draft for sure. Very underrated. But the Raiders, as good as he is, the Raiders they don't do a lot of things well, but their rush defense is really good. They have the 5th best rush defense in the league right now. I think it's another volume thing. I think Dameon Pierce gets the ball a lot. I think he does get in the end zone. I think they throw it down, get in the red zone, and then they're just going to rely on Dameon Pierce to try to plug one in. So I think it's a decent spot for Dameon Pierce. I wouldn't set high expectations, but I think it's not too bad. Mostert against Pittsburgh. Not going to lie, I don't love it. I just don't like anybody in that Miami backfield at all. Just that Miami's run game has just never been good. They still have yet to figure out if they like Mostert or if they like Chase Edmonds. It's usually one or the other, or they're usually both just not involved. They just have so many good passing options that they just don't really need the running game. I think this is going to be way more of a Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle game than it is a Mostert, but fuck, what do I know? Mike Evans against Carolina. I do like that one. Carolina is pretty tough in Carolina especially. They're not too bad, but I mean, they're at the end of the day, their pass defense just isn't great. They're a bottom 4 or 5 team. They're 20. Let's see, they're 29th against the pass. Mike Evans is just a specimen. He's like 6'5". He's huge. He's gonna get the looks. He's their favorite red zone target. And Carolina's terrible. They just fired their coach, but they do play tough at home. I think this game sucks. Honestly, whatever the under is what I'm probably gonna bet. Just with Tom Brady, it's just looking more and more ancient as the days go by, and that offense is definitely suffering a little bit from that. So, if I had to have a guy on Tampa Bay, it would probably be Mike Evans, just because how bad that pass defense is. But another one, just maybe temper expectations just a little bit. I love Amari Cooper against Baltimore. That Baltimore Baltimore pass D rather is very, very beatable. They're ranked 21st against the pass, and Amari Cooper has been the guy really. Other than Nick Chubb, he's been the guy. He's been the pass catcher. So, good spot there for Amari Cooper. Don't know about Noah Fant against the Chargers. He had his best week of the season last week for sure. We got 10.5 fantasy points, 6 catches for 45 yards. We could maybe see something similar to that now that they actually found a rapport with them. Let's see what they're ranked against the pass here on the Chargers. Oh yeah, they're 25th. Very beatable. I think they're gonna probably try to throw to their big guys, the Metcalfs and the Lockett's. But Fant's a great option, and I don't think he's in a bad spot against the Chargers. T. Higgins, probably kind of frustrating having T. Higgins because he's just absolutely boomer bust. He had 3 weeks where he went like 19 points, 14 points, and then 30, and then he got hurt, and then he's back down to 10. So it's tough with him, just with how boomer bust he is. But I do like him if he's healthy. I like him against Atlanta because whoever Atlanta's best guy is going to be on Jamar Chase, and they haven't I think an equally good pass catcher in T. Higgins. So having those kind of guys, having like the wide receiver 2 in those pass heavy teams is always a good thing. And I think Higgins has a big game against Atlanta, I think anyway. And then the Tampa Bay defense, that's great. Carolina sucks. If they can just keep McCaffrey at bay, then that they're going to be just fine. Tampa Bay is just solid against whoever, especially against the rush. They're fantastic. As long as they can, like I said, as long as they can hold down Christian McCaffrey, then they should be just fine. So not too bad matchups there. Looking over at Emily, she is going with the worst QB in history, Fields, going on Monday against New England. I would pay $3,000 to play Emily this week when it's not Josh Allen. So she's got to go with Justin Fields, who is just the worst QB of all time. But I get it. The waiver wire is very scarce. I don't know if there's a better option than him, unless M wants to just suit up herself and play quarterback for the Bears. That actually she probably is going to get more points than Justin Fields is. Prime time in New England, horrible offense. It's not going to be easy for Justin Fields at all. I just don't like that one. I do like Joe Mixon though against Atlanta. Same thing I was just talking about with Atlanta just not being very good. They have the 21st best rush defense, very beatable. Mixon's kind of finding his groove here. He got in the end zone last week. I think in the air. Yeah, he did. He caught a pass in the air. It's tough with him. It's just such a pass heavy offense. But if they get down into the red zone, they're always going to be looking for him. So I think Mixon busts in again for back-to-back scores. Don't love Etienne at all. New York at home is going to be tough. They're 5-1. Etienne is very much kind of playing second fiddle to James Robinson, and we're really seeing Trevor Lawrence run the ball more than anybody in that backfield there, more so than both running backs. So, not a great time to own Jacksonville's running backs. I don't think, especially against a tough defense in New York. That team's fired up. They're good right now, and it's not a great spot for Etienne. It's a great spot for Mike Williams, though. He obviously struggled against Denver because he had Pat Surtain cover him the whole time, who is easily in the top two corners in the league. He gets a much more beatable defense this week in Seattle. Let me see here. Seattle has been getting cooked all year, so they can't be. Now, surprisingly, they've got this. It says they have this. They're sixth against opposing wide receivers. That seems weird because they've been giving up a ton of yards all week, or all season. But I still like Mike Williams. I think because Herbert and the Chargers were kind of corked last week by the Broncos, I think this is a great bounce back spot for them. And Mike Williams especially. They're playing in LA again, and it's a good spot for Mike Williams, I think anyway. It's not for Garrett Wilson against Denver. He's probably going to get Pat Surtain, which we've seen all season. He's shut down Devontae Adams. He's shut down Mike Williams. He's probably, I mean, I don't know for sure, but if I had to guess, he's probably going to get the shadow from Surtain. I think that game sucks. I even though I think the Jets will win, I think they're going to win via their running game because that's just where the Broncos can get beat. But I don't love the Wilson to Wilson connection here with the inevitable Surtain blanket that's going to be over him the whole time. Komet, same thing, just bad. I wouldn't want anybody in that Chicago offense right now. I totally get it with how the waiver wires just fucking pick clean. Komet he's a good player for sure, but he's just got the worst player in the world thrown to him. New England is historically tough, especially against tight ends. But if he and Fields can find some sort of connection, which is very possible, and those little just dump off tight end passes, it could work out okay for him. But not my favorite on paper. Eno Benjamin going tonight in replacement for James Conner, who's still hurt. New Orleans got smacked in the air last week by the Bengals, but that's just because that's where they can be beat. They're very, very good against the rush, which I don't have any of the right answers for him here. I'm sorry, but you just have very, very tough matchups. I think Eno Benjamin is in that same conversation too. He does catch some passes, which I think happens for sure. I think he can catch 2, 3, 4 passes in this game. I'm a little worried for his output on the ground. And then Carolina's defense against Tampa Bay. Don't hate it, don't love it. It's kind of middle of the road. I would like them less if they weren't playing at home. Against Tampa Bay, who just hasn't been very good to start the season. They're not putting up a lot of points. They definitely aren't going to the Super Bowl this year. I think there's sneaky value there with Carolina. I might even pick them to win or cover at least. So, that's probably one of the more I like out of this whole lineup. But unfortunately, you're projected to get your ass kicked, and I think that's probably fair. You just got some tough buys this week. Not playing, not being able to play Josh Allen is tough, and I'm sure against Abby that's probably where you probably don't want to have that happen. But I think the projection's fair here. I think Abby probably takes this one pretty easily unless something crazy happens. Colin versus Case. This is a powerhouse. This might be one of the best matchups of the season so far. These are two guys who are just scoring a shitload of points. Colin gets Dak Prescott back this week against Detroit. He's not supposed to be wearing like a thumb brace or anything like that. He's talked to the media that he's good. If that's true and he's healthy, I love his spot this week against Detroit. They just have such a bad defense, giving up the most points in football. They have the worst pass defense. Dak has a healthy team now. I'll be curious to see kind of how he kind of just gels back into the mix after missing the first pretty much 6 3/4 week. But I love Dak Prescott in this one. I don't love Fournette. Carolina they have been tough against the rush this week. I keep saying this week. They've been tough against the rush this season so far. If I wasn't a fucking idiot and I knew what I was talking about. Let me see here. Carolina. They're I don't know. It says they're 20th against the rush. They've definitely been better than that though. Fournette's had his struggles this season. They are probably going to try to win the game in the air just with their options. I would guess, but I wouldn't be shocked if Fournette maybe got in once, but he just has not been as explosive this year as he has in the past. But he's been better as of late. Especially in the air, he's caught three straight. He's had three straight receiving touchdowns. In the last 3 weeks. So very possible he does it. I think that's probably going to be his avenue to a score is a pass, is a catch, rather than the ground. So it's not too bad for Fournette. Saquon is in a really good spot. The guy's just been a monster this week. He's easily going to win comeback player of the year. They're playing in Jacksonville. Jacksonville has a bottom 5 rush defense. That Giants team is probably the surprise of the season. I would say they're 5-1, which seems weird because I feel like they haven't been that good. But they've had a new look Saquon. I think he continues that easily against Jacksonville. They'll probably win, and Saquon will get in the end zone. Amon-Ra St. Brown against Dallas. I was kind of going over it with Ben a little bit. I'm not quite sure how this game's going to go. It's probably going to be a shootout. I like Dallas at home. St. Brown is going to get the Trayvon Diggs coverage, which is, most of the time bad, but sometimes when he's not on, he's very beatable. Even though it's a high-scoring offense, I don't know how to feel about St. Brown. I feel like when most teams come to Dallas, like the big teams like that, they kind of get shut down a lot of the time. So maybe just a little bit of hindered expectations there for St. Brown. I do love Allen Lazard. He's very much become the guy in Green Bay, the pass catcher. He's Aaron Rodgers is Devontae Adams, at least through the first 7 weeks. Washington is very beatable. They were only looking good last week because they played the fucking Bears. But I think if we formed our own football team, our fantasy league, we could keep the Bears under 2 touchdowns. I really think. But Allen Lazard, he's in a great spot. I like him to get in the end zone on Sunday. The fantasy quote experts unquote they really like him too. They're big on the lizard. So I'm right there with them. Hawkinson. Another one, I almost maybe like Hawkinson a little bit more than St. Brown. Dallas can get to the quarterbacks, and there's probably going to be a lot of just like those quick dump off tight end passes from Jared Goff. So I don't think that's a bad spot at all for Hawkinson. DeAndre Swift is coming back. Looks like finally he gets a tough one to come back to in Dallas. Against the run, Dallas is ranked 11th. So they're in the upper quartile against the rush, which makes sense to me. So luckily he's a pass catcher. I think they get him the ball in the air a few times in this one, but I just don't, coming off a bye and coming off an injury, I'm worried for the Lions in that one, but again, I'm wrong most of the time. And then Jets against Denver. Fuck, I would have told you before that was really stupid, but that Denver offense still looks so bad. Russell Wilson's really bad. Hackett fucking sucks. And the Jets just completely fucking demolished the Packers, and they look better. Like they're one of the bigger surprises of the season too. So I don't think streaming anybody against the Broncos right now is a bad idea, especially the Jets. They're kind of fighting to prove that they're not the worst team ever. So overall, I don't hate that. Don't hate that at all. Moving on to Casey. We'll see if he puts up fucking 300 and something again. He's actually projected to get smacked around a little bit here. He's got to play Matt Ryan, which usually I tell you is a really bad idea, but Tennessee has been so bad against the pass. And Matt Ryan I can't believe it, but he has the second most passing yards in the NFL behind Josh Allen, which is crazy. But he's actually in a good spot. If he can keep the ball out of the other team's fucking hands for a change, it's not a bad streaming option for Ryan, who is coming in replacement for Case's other quarterback, Jalen Hurts, who's on a bye. He's got Stephon Diggs, he's on a bye too. This is of all the weeks that someone has to play Case. Of course, it's the second juggernaut, Colin, who is putting up a shitload of points. So good news for Colin there, but Casey, yeah, I mean, Matt Ryan is not a bad streaming option whatsoever. Najee Harris against Miami. It's been a weird start for Najee Harris. He was so good last year. He just plays in a really bad offense, too. He caught a receiving touchdown last week, but I think he's only got 3 or 4 touchdowns on the season. He hasn't scored a rushing touchdown since week 3 against Cleveland. It's just a weird... It's part of that thing I was saying. It's just a weird year of fantasy where so many of like the studs are just putting up weird low numbers. Miami is beatable against the run. They're ranked 22nd. I'll be curious to see how Pittsburgh attacks this game. If they don't use Najee Harris, they're stupid, frankly. But I could see them trying to pass the ball. But when they get in close, I think there's decent points in this game. I think Najee Harris gets in. It's not too bad for him. Same with Nick Chubb, number 1 running back in fantasy right now. He's in Baltimore. Baltimore is about middle of the road against the pass. They're ranked against the rush. They're ranked 14th. Yeah, Nick Chubb is just Nick Chubb. I think you can just kind of leave it at that. He's just matchup proof. They're going to try to get the ball in his hands a lot during the game just because they have so few passing options. Jacoby Brissett is just kind of like a meh quarterback, and you have the best running back in the league right now on your team, so why wouldn't you get the ball in his hands? So volume-wise, I think Nick Chubb's not in a bad spot at all. Waddle, love Waddle this week, and they probably will beat Pittsburgh, I would imagine. Buffalo just rained passes on him 2 weeks ago, and Miami has the offensive capability to do that. Whether it's Waddle, whether it's Tyreek, we're seeing a lot of both of them so far. I thought it was going to be kind of one or the other, but they're getting both of them involved almost every game. So Waddle will probably get in. I think he's in for at least a touchdown and like 60 or 70 yards, and we could see the same thing for for Tyreek Hill as well if they did what Buffalo did on him. And that game's in Miami as well, the Sunday night football game. So, yep, love Waddle there. I like Ayuk a lot. He got in twice last week. He's kind of in training camp and preseason, they said that he was going to be the guy a lot of the time, and he was last week for sure, which sucks for me because I have Debo, but I do like Brandon Ayuk as well. And KC is very beatable in the air if the other team does it right, and I feel like San Fran has played them tough historically, so I don't think it's unreasonable for Ayuk to have a decent game. I don't think he gets in twice like he did last week, but it's still not a bad spot for him. And Waller is, God, he's gotten 5.2, 5.4. Got 0 in week 5. He had a bye last week. It's not Waller was just like one of the big tight ends, and he just hasn't been this year. And I think it's because Vegas just isn't very good. There's a good opportunity for him this week against Houston, but it's tough to trust that Vegas offense and Derek Carr, who's just kind of like the definition of like a mid QB. So I'd say it's an okay matchup there. Pittman, I love Pittman this week. Pittman has been really, really good here in the last few weeks. He had 134 yards on 13 catches last week for almost 30 fantasy points. He's not finding the end zone. He hasn't found the end zone since week 1. I think he finds the end zone this week against Tennessee. Like I said, that Tennessee, they're like either the worst against wide receivers or the second worst against wide receivers. Bottom line is they're very, very beatable. I think the Colts come away with that one, and I think Pittman gets in for a score. And finally, he's got the New England defense against Chicago. I think you stream any team against Chicago, they're probably the number 1 defense that week. At home, especially in New England, we don't really need to go into super detail about that one. They're playing just statistically the worst offense in football at home. That's an easy one. I like New England. They can force turnovers. Not much more to be said about that one. So the two buys, the big ones, Jalen Hurts and Diggs definitely hurt them. No pun intended. Maybe a little pun intended. And he's projected to lose to Colin 136 to 111. Yeah, probably fair. I think it's a little bit closer than that. I think they're kind of doing Case dirty a little bit on his matchups. I think it's definitely closer. I think it's fair to give Colin the edge a little bit. But this one's going to be closer than the projections say. I think Case could potentially sneak a win too if Matt Ryan isn't the worst QB ever this week. But I would maybe give the lean just a little bit to Colin, but I think Case is getting dogged a little bit. I would take his plus money if I were the betting man on that one. Moving on to Sam and Liv. Sam has just been getting cucked by injuries, and this week he gets cucked on bye. Right now he's projected to lose 112.1 to 123.2, and it's because he's got Justin Jefferson on bye and he's got Kirk Cousins on bye. So he's going to roll with Tua this week against Pittsburgh. It's always tough with a guy who's just, his brain got turned into jelly here twice in 2 games, and he's been out for the last few weeks. He is going to play this week. If he's healthy and he does it right, they should beat Pittsburgh, and I think it's a decent game for Tua as long as he doesn't get suplexed onto the back of his fucking head again and plays like a snap. They were talking about it on one of the other fantasy podcasts I was listening to about how he was going to. That first game back after 2 pretty serious injuries. And it's kind of just becomes a mental thing. But Tua's dealt with injuries his entire career. He dealt with them in college too, and it's definitely something he's used to. So I don't think that's going to factor too much into it. Like I said, if he does it right, it should be a good game for him. He should beat Pittsburgh at home on prime time. Don't like Montgomery. He just hasn't. That offense just so fucking stale. They haven't really gotten into a situation where they can just run the ball comfortably and often. And going back to it being in New England on the road, prime time, that's just where New England shines and where Belichick shines. So don't love Montgomery. I do like Breece Hall against Denver, though. I said it earlier, Denver is definitely the most exploitable on the ground, and Breece Hall has been great. Last week, he rushed 20 times for 116 yards and a catch. I think he had a couple receptions as well, just maybe 2 or 3. But I could see them leaning on Breece Hall. I think this game is close the entire time. I think the Jets get up, and they get the luxury of being able to run the ball, and they've found the guy in Breece Hall. So I don't hate that at all, even against a tough Bronco defense here at home. Devontae Adams is in a great spot against Houston. Houston is just so beatable, and now that they're coming off a bye, they're gonna try to get Devontae Adams back into it. Houston has a 26th ranked defense against wide receivers. Nothing real special there about Devontae Adams other than he's got a great matchup. Drake London against Cincinnati is kind of a toughie. Cincinnati, they aren't world beaters in the air by any means. Or against the pass rather. They aren't, but Drake London's kind of been going back in the wrong direction. Like, he had 23.6 against the Rams, 14 against Seattle, then he had 3, 7.5, and 7. It's all just game script with Atlanta. They could keep it semi close against Cincinnati. They're playing tough. They've covered the spread in every single game of the season so far, so they are very capable of keeping games close. In fact, they're just like masters at it. I don't know how much Drake London's going to be utilized, but he should be because because Cincinnati can be thrown on. Like I said, they're not airtight against the pass by any means. So if they utilize them and they kind of get away from the rush a little bit, which, Mariota, they did lose Cordero Patterson to the IR, so it's really just Mariota who's running most of the time. But in a game where they should have to pass, it may not be too bad for Drake London. I don't like Zach Ertz this week. New Orleans is tough. They're particularly tough against the rush and against tight ends. They're beatable in the secondary and on deep balls, but I just don't love Ertz tonight against New Orleans. I think that's a tough one. Sam's got James Conner in his flex currently, who is out. So Sam, if you take him out as I'm saying this or after I say this, then kudos to you. As of right now, I just kind of have to talk about it because he's your flex. James Conner's out. Don't play him. Miami's defense against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's offense is bad. Miami's defense hasn't been, rock solid. They're ranked 28th. I don't think it's a bad streaming option just because that Pittsburgh offense where they're kind of they're on a QB carousel right now. They don't know who to play. It's not too bad. I don't think it's a horrible streaming option at home in Miami. They'll be fired up and it's prime time and Pittsburgh is just such a poorly run offense. So not great, but not too bad. Liv, let's see here. Liv has got Herbert against Seattle. I think I talked about it a little bit. I think this is kind of the uncorker game for Herbert and the Chargers. They're playing a much more beatable Seattle defense than they did here against Denver last week. Herbert should be in for a good day. He should be getting his full team back. It's even if he doesn't, even if it's just Mike Williams and Gerald Everett and just and Eckler and those kind of guys and Palmer. It's still a good matchup for Herbert. He should be a lot better this week than he was against the Broncos. Derrick Henry is coming back off of a bye, but he gets a good matchup though too. He's got the Colts. They're ranked 23rd against the rush. He's got some rest. Derrick Henry should be leaned on in this one. I hope they don't, for Liv's sake, I hope they don't get phased out of the rush if the Colts get big up on him, which I think is possible. But Derrick Henry's Derrick Henry. I think he'll be fine. McKissick, Liv's got both him and Antonio Gibson going against Green Bay. I get that that's just kind of it's just a circumstance thing. I don't love either of their matchups really, just because Green Bay they're ranked 16th against the rush. They're not too bad. Green Bay is going to have the red ass after getting blown out by the Jets last week. I mean, at least no matter who runs the ball, Liv's going to get points, whether it's McKissick or whether it's Antonio Gibson. I don't see a situation in which they're going to be able to run the ball a whole lot, but I could be wrong. Metcalf against the Chargers, love him. I was talking about that matchup earlier. I think it's a shootout. Metcalf has been pretty good here so far. He is kind of off and on scoring. He went touchdown, not. So if you like patterns and that kind of stuff, he had 2 straight weeks of 23, or he had 23 and then 20, and then he was 5 last week. I think he gets back into the teens at least against the Chargers. So decent matchup for DK. And then Gerald Everett, same thing. I think he's becoming a huge part of the Chargers offense. I like him as well. And then lastly, going with the Vegas defense against Houston. I think there are better options out there than that one, but they were on the waiver wire anyway. They were like the highest projected points. I get Houston's bad, but so is Vegas and so is their defense. I could see this game having a lot of points in it. I don't think it's a great streaming option, but it is definitely one of the better ones according to the projections that you're going to find on the waiver wire. But I wouldn't put a lot of hope into that one being just a complete shutdown defense, a lot of points. I think they maybe get 5 or 6 fantasy points if I had to guess, maybe, if they don't get completely blown out. So it's not a great matchup there. Liv's real only buy is Devin Singletary, which makes sense why she has to play both McKissick and Gibson. So despite the not great matchups, Liv is projected to smack Sam around 123.2 to 112. That'll change when Sam gets James Conner out of his lineup for sure. But I don't know. I think there's some hope in Tua tonight, or sorry, not tonight, on Sunday night, Breece Hall and Devontae Adams. So kind of similar to Casey and Colin's situation. I think Liv could come away with the win here, but I think they're dogging Sam a little bit too much. But like I said, it'll change when he gets James Conner out of there. But I think Sam keeps this close. But if I had to guess, I think Liv may come away with this one in the end. Alrighty, moving on here to Al and Matt Glassmeyer. So, Matt has changed his name to the 2008 Detroit Lions. If you don't know, that's like one of the worst football teams in history, which is kind of the record that Matt is going for this year in fantasy. Al, he's got Lamar Jackson against Cleveland. Cleveland, they have the 22nd ranked defense against opposing QBs. I think Jackson kind of gets back to normal against this one. He was insane to start the season. He was getting like 30, 60, 50, and then he's been back to 15, 16, 18. Kind of going, the trend dropped, but he's kind of coming back in the right direction here. Cleveland's very beatable. I think he does a lot on the ground. I think he rushes for a touchdown. I think he throws for at least one. So I don't think it's a bad matchup for Lamar Jackson at all. I think it's a great matchup for Eckler. He was great against the Broncos despite not getting in the end zone. I think he very much gets in the end zone in this game. Seattle, let me see here. I know they are ranked fairly low. Yeah, 26th against the rush. This is a great spot for Eckler. I think he runs all over him. I think he gets in at least once. I think he catches a lot of passes. It should be a big game for him. Jerick McKinnon should be the opposite of that if we're being honest. Just because CEH is kind of the guy. Jerick McKinnon looks like he's coming in just for buy's sake, unless Al's desperate for a running back. But anyway, I wouldn't expect a lot out of Jerick McKinnon. He's very much kind of playing the second role there. Last week he had two receptions for one, or he had 2 carries for 1 total yard, but he did have 3 catches for 30 yards. So it's all situational. He could sneak in for maybe just like a passing TD. But I think that game's fairly low scoring, so I don't maybe not like McKinnon on that one. Do love Tyreek Hill though. That Pittsburgh secondary is very, very beatable. It's all going to come down to how good Tua looks since coming back from getting his fucking brain scrambled like a bunch of eggs. Godwin, yeah, could be decent. That Tampa Bay just hasn't looked very good so far this year, but Godwin's getting more and more involved coming back from his ACL injury. He's gotten 12, and then 15 in his last 3 games, so he's definitely building more and more of a target share. It's very possible he does it against Carolina. I already kind of talked about how I think that game's going to be terrible, but Godwin's always going to be involved in that offense, so he could get in. But I think at the worst, I think he could get somewhere around there, around 10 to 12 points maybe. Will Dissly against Seattle, he's just kind of, like Dissly's not bad. I mean, he's been kind of falling back to earth the last couple games. He's gotten 4.1 points and then 2.2 points. But the Chargers are very beatable. And it just, yeah, that's just kind of like a, it's an okay matchup, I think. All right, let's see who else here. Cortland Sutton against the Jets. I actually don't like this one because the Jets were very stingy against Green Bay, and it's just that it's Russell Wilson and the Broncos offense, right? It's Sutton's is very clearly like the guy you want to have on the Broncos right now, but I don't think there's a lot of big play opportunities here against the Jets, who are coming into this way hotter than the Broncos are. So as much as I do like Sutton, I just don't like him in this particular game. And then San Francisco against KC. I know it's kind of scary to stream a defense against Patrick Mahomes, but San Fran at home is tough, and I think they can keep it within positive fantasy points at least. I don't think it's going to be above 10. I think it could be around 10, maybe like 7 or 8, but overall I don't think that's a bad choice. Okay, moving on to Matt. At one of these times, Matt's going to win a game one of these times, and it very well could be this week. Just because Aaron Rodgers gets Washington, who are the 31st ranked defense against quarterbacks. I know Aaron Rodgers hasn't looked very much like Aaron Rodgers this year, but he very well could in this one. I would love it a little bit more if he was in Green Bay, but I mean, being in Washington shouldn't scare anybody. That's just a bad team, really bad secondary. Aaron Rodgers, if all goes well and he doesn't, like I said, he lost to the Jets last week, so that should be in the back of his mind. He's in for a very good bounce back game against Washington this week. Same goes for Aaron Jones too, since we're on the subject. Aaron Jones, let's see here. How did he do last week? He had 9 carries for 19 yards, 3 catches for 25 yards. It wasn't great for Aaron Jones, but I think there's way better opportunity for him this week, despite Washington having the 8th best rush defense. I still think they try to get him involved. They try to get him in the end zone. They should be in the red zone quite a bit, and you obviously got to like Aaron Jones in the red zone. Jonathan Taylor, he is projected to finally come back from his injury. So it's kind of curious to see, in those situations, you never know how they're going to use their running backs, and those guys come back from injury in general. Swift is kind of in that same situation. If he does come back, it's a toughie. Not gonna lie, it's a toughie. The Titans have the number 1 defense against opposing running backs right now, and with him just coming off the high ankle sprain, you never know. It's Jonathan Taylor. He's very naturally talented, but at the end of the day, he's coming off a big period of time off against the best rush defense in the league right now. So, not a glowing preview for Jonathan Taylor, but you never know. Keenan Allen, talking about that that Chargers offense. If he plays, it's kind of the same situation. He's been out pretty much all season with his hamstring injury. If he plays, he's in a good spot against a weak defense. You just wonder if they're going to kind of nurse him in a little bit. What his target share is going to look like. I don't know. That's kind of a toughie. Matt's got a lot of guys coming off injury, and that holds true again with DeAndre Hopkins tonight. He should slide in theoretically. He should slide into the number 1 role. He's not coming off injury. He's coming off a suspension, so he should be good and healthy. And he's taking over immediately for Marquise Brown going down as the number 1 wide receiver. I could see them trying to get him involved almost immediately. And he should be able to do it against New Orleans, who do have a weak secondary, especially. Kyle Pitts, the mystery that is Kyle Pitts. That Atlanta offense is just so weird, and you don't know how Kyle Pitts is going to be used. He got in last week. He was good last week. And they're very. I think they kind of listened to the media and the public's outcry of like, holy shit, guys, you used a 4th-round pick on Kyle Pitts, and he gets some good opportunities against Cincinnati this week. Who, like I said, we're beatable in the air, so it's not too bad look for Kyle Pitts, who hopefully they just kind of keep the train rolling on him. Kenneth Walker, the third. Matt had a really smart pickup there because he is the uncontested running back in Seattle. He was very, very good last week. He had 21 carries for 97 yards and a touchdown. He also had 13 aerial yards. So just over 100 yards, 100 total scrimmage yards. He did get in the end zone. The Chargers are very, very beatable against the rush. They're the worst rush defense in the league. Kenneth Walker should chew those guys alive in a game that should be close the whole time, giving Seattle the opportunity to run the entire time. So pretty good there. At least as of me recording this, he's going to play him against his own defense, against the Chargers D. I don't like the Chargers D anyway in this game, so my guess is Matt should change it. That game should have a lot of points in it. I wouldn't want to play one of my better running backs against my own defense, especially when my own defense is the worst rush defense in the league. So my guess is Matt's going to change it, but maybe he'll kind of play with a hand grenade on that one. So overall, Matt is actually projected to get his first win, 121.9 to 116. I don't know. He should, based on just his Green Bay matchups alone, should help him out a lot. I think DeAndre Hopkins gets involved here in a little bit, and I love Kenneth Walker. But Lamar Jackson against Cleveland's very good. I love Eckler against Seattle. Tyreek Hill against Pittsburgh, as long as Tua's good to go. This one should be close. Matt, like I said, Matt should get his first win here, but Al just doesn't seem to lose against anybody, especially this season. He's flying. So I don't know. This one's going to be close. I may be going to give the lean to Matt just a little bit. And then finally, we get to Matt Morelli and Vic. This is the lowest projected scorer of the week here. It's 91.5 for Matt to 97 for Vic. Now, Tom Brady for Matt here is going against Carolina. Kind of been talking about it. Brady has not been looking very good. He gets a tougher matchup in Carolina. Brady's been getting anywhere in like the high teens, the 14, 15, 16 area. I think he gets somewhere similar to that. Dobbins, I do like Dobbins this week. He was disappointing in week 6, and he was definitely outplayed by Kenyon Drake, which was kind of weird, but the Browns represent a much more like a bounce back kind of a favorable matchups than the Giants did. I would expect Dobbins to get a little bit more involved. That's if Lamar Jackson doesn't just run the ball the entire time. Kenyon Drake, yeah, I don't hate it if that's the route he's going to go, kind of what Liv's doing. You just might as well have both running backs if you have the guys handcuffed. If Drake was as good as he was last week, it's not a bad option to have him going this week as well. He had 119 yards and a touchdown run, so don't hate that strategy. Jamar Chase, I do like Jamar Chase. He's gonna get whoever Atlanta's best corner is, but Jamar Chase is Jamar Chase. I really like Cincinnati in that game at home. Jamar Chase should be getting the ball. He probably will find the end zone. Not bad there at all. Mecole Hardman, he found the end zone last week, and it's kind of just like that weird KC offense where you just don't know who they're going to throw to other than Travis Kelce. But going back to it, I'm a little worried for the Chiefs in this one against that good defense in San Francisco. At least as of me talking about it, Matt has Dawson Knox on bye. And this is kind of bye-mageddon for Matt as I look at it here. He's got Dawson Knox on bye, A.J. Brown, Miles Sanders, Matt Stafford, Tyler Higbee, Cam Akers. So Matt has just like a bye explosion this week, and he currently doesn't have a tight end. So he's going to have to go figure out a tight end to play because he can't play Dawson Knox. Smith Schuster, same thing, kind of the same Hardman thing. Smith Schuster finally had a breakout game last week. He smoked the Bills. I think he comes back to earth a little bit here against San Francisco. Cincinnati defense, don't hate that at all. They're not exactly star-studded when Eli Apple's your best secondary guy, which is frightening. But Atlanta's not putting up a whole lot of points, so I think it's like a middle of the pack streaming option for him there. Okay, moving on to Vic. Now Vic is he's just committed to Danger Russ. He's just committed to Russell Wilson. I get it because his other quarterback was Carson Wentz, who is not on his team anymore, it looks like. I just don't like the Broncos in this game. I think it's just going to be a classic Bronco shitty, Russell Wilson shitty, like just low scoring. Like he's going to get maybe like 15 fantasy points. At some point he's going to explode. I just don't know if it's going to be that one. That's kind of a tougher matchup with the Jets. So I don't like Russell Wilson. Same with Edwards-Helaire. I just don't love that matchup either. He had 9 carries for 33 yards last week and no receptions. He had 3.3. I don't see where he factors into this game very much. They may try to run the ball a little bit on San Francisco, but I can't see that happening. So it's not great. With Latavius Murray, not a bad pickup. But I read a report today that they're going right back to Melvin Gordon as the number 1 running back. It was so weird how he played like 3 snaps last week. I'm sure Latavius Murray factors into this game at some point. Maybe it's just kind of a change of pace guy, third down guy maybe, if they need to bust it up a yard. But I don't think Latavius Murray gets in for a whole lot on this one. Terry McLaurin against Green Bay draws a little bit tougher matchup with Green Bay, but then again, the Jets did just romp them last week. They're going with Heineke at quarterback instead of Wentz. So it's tough to say kind of what that relationship's going to look like with the change of QB. But I mean, McLaurin he's a very talented wide receiver. It just kind of remains to be seen what that's going to look like. I really like Green Bay in that game. I think they bounce back and turn it up at home. So maybe not great for McLaurin. Robert Woods, he was okay. He had 12.5 in week 3, 13 in week 4, then 7 in week 5. He's coming off the bye. I could see a situation in which they have to throw the ball, Tennessee, to keep up with Indy and to get back in the game to throw the ball. So Woods isn't a horrible option here, I don't think. I think just circumstance-wise, I don't think it's a bad play. Mark Andrews is Mark Andrews. He's, either the first or the second best tight end in the league, however you feel. He's probably the second best tight end in the league, in my opinion. Cleveland's very beatable. Mark Andrews gets the ball a ton. I think that's a no-brainer there. He's gonna, as of right now anyway, he's going back with Valdez-Scantling at his flex. He did get 0 points last week. His best week was week 5 when he got 15 points, 6 catches for 90 yards. Going right back to the Chiefs. He's kind of the little bit more out of favor Chiefs wide receiver in that plethora of passing options they have. So I don't love him this week. And Vic might be powerless without his Buffalo bye, or without his Buffalo defense, who are on bye this week. And he doesn't have another defense on his bench, and he's got Cooper Kupp on a bye as well. So this is a very, very good week to play Vic. If Matt does it right and sets his lineup right, he should beat him. Those are the 2 biggest parts of Vic's lineup that are out right now. I think Vic's got the 97-point projection right now to Matt's 91.5, but those matchups just are not very good, and his 2 best plays are out this week. So I would bet Matt is the underdog in this one. If, like I said, as long as he sets his lineup right, he gets Dawson Knox out of there and finds a tight end who plays. I think I probably like Matt a little bit in this one, but that's just me. Okay, yeah, that's gonna do it there. It's gonna be interesting. It's no one's projected at a very high scores at all. It's like 136, I think, is the highest projected, and that's Colin. But it's a lot of like around hundreds, 110. The next highest is like, someone like me and Ben at 128. And it's going to be a weird week. We're getting into the buys now, finally. Matt has like 1 billion buys, it looks like. Vic's got his two best guys on buy. It's like week 7, 8, 9 is historically just like buy-mageddon. So going to be interesting to see how people set their lineups this week, especially with just how pick clean the waiver is for pretty much anything that isn't wide receiver. There are literally no running backs on the waiver wire. There's no good QBs on the waiver wire. There's a couple okay tight ends, but it's mainly like those B and C tier wide receivers that are still there. So it'll be interesting to see how people start setting their buys, or how they start kind of playing around their bye weeks coming up. But anyway, I think that is going to do it. Thank you guys for bearing with me here as I kind of just mumble, stumble, and bumble through my bullshit. I'm happy to be back and putting out the fantasy stuff again. And like I said, I just didn't have time to do it last week, but now we're moving and grooving again this week. I do have some fun stuff planned coming up here for Halloween, and some fun stuff planned coming up here for the podcast. So just keep bearing with me. We'll keep rolling, and we'll see how it goes. So good luck to everybody starting tonight on Thursday Night Football, and I'll be back to chat with you on Tuesday. Peace.